This is Dante Williams, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I've been telling you guys this whole year that this is the year of the upsets. And once again, we've seen another upset tonight with K9 Bundrage dominating and knocking down twice Carlos Molina. Now, realistically, this was a 50-50 fight. But because the sport is mainly based on emotions and pride, many boxing fans really gave K9 no chance. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I picked K9 to win the fight because I didn't pick anyone to win the fight. It was a 50-50 fight. The only point that I'm making is if you remove your pride and your emotions and you just look at the stats of K9, you look at the stats of Carlos Molina, you should have seen that this was a competitive fight as opposed to believing that K9 is sloppy and he's this and he's that. I mean, you have to understand, this is a guy who dominated Corey Spinks. And not saying Corey Spinks is one of the greatest fighters of all time, but Corey Spinks was a good fighter. He was a good, slick boxer. And K9 Bundrage, who was older than Corey Spinks and is much older than Carlos Molina, he dominated both of these fighters as of tonight. This is a very impressive win for K9 when you consider the fact that nobody gave him a chance to win this fight. You know, I was going back right now and scrolling back and reading some of the comments on, previous articles leading up to this fight. And like I said, at least 90% of the comments were Carlos Molina will dominate this fight. The worst thing that they would say is, Carlos Molina may not be the most exciting and K9 may not be the most exciting, but Carlos wins the fight hands down, right? Regardless if they thought these fighters were boring or not, everyone picked Carlos Molina to win this fight. So for all the people who said that Carlos was going to win this fight, you can't turn around now and try to make excuses why Molina lost the fight. Like trying to say, oh, he was rusty, this and that, he's got some problems and so on and so forth. All of that is completely irrelevant because you picked him to win the fight. If you truly believe that these excuses of him being rusty or whatever the case may be was actually valid, then you would have said, you know what? I think that this fight is a toss-up or K9 may win because Carlos Molina, he's rusty. He's this, he's that, right? But you didn't say that because you truly believed no matter how rusty Carlos Molina is, he's going to beat K9 because K9 ain't nothing. That's basically how you guys seen it. At least the ones that all said that Molina would win the fight easy. And speaking of being rusty, just keep in mind, both of these fighters have been out of the ring for quite some time. K9 hasn't had a fight in over 10 months, and Molina, he hadn't had a fight in over 13 months. Okay? So it was very close. Not only that, but if you actually go look at K9's record, he actually fights once a year. So K9 is usually always coming off of a year layoff, all right? When he fought against Corey Spinks, he beat Corey Spinks, he was off a year. Then he had a rematch with Corey Spinks, and in a rematch, it was a year later, he knocked out Corey Spinks, okay? So there is no excuses when it comes to being rusty. Carlos Molina, he just got beat, and he got dominated. It was a very entertaining fight. The very first round, K9 knocks down Molina, and then he knocks him down again in the 10th round. Now, after he knocked him down in the first round, he continued to kind of beat up on Molina a little bit all the way to the second round, and he was frustrating Molina. Usually Molina is used to frustrating everyone with his clinch and grab, but K9 is smarter than a lot of people think. K9 was able to catch Molina with really good uppercuts inside of the clinch when Carlos tries to clinch him. So you could tell he prepared for that clinch and grab type of style that Molina has. Carlos Molina is a very decent fighter, but the problem is he wasn't fighting against a flat-footed James Kirkland tonight. He was fighting against a guy who actually thinks in a ring. I'm not trying to say K9 is Floyd Mayweather or Demetrius Andrade or Andre Ward. I'm just saying, compared to Carlos Molina, K9 was thinking in the ring tonight. Okay? So, this is an interesting development. K9 at age 41, regaining the title. Once again, we have another fighter in his 40s that's able to beat younger champions. It's very impressive. It's very impressive. And, just keep in mind, Canelo Alvarez, he never really wanted to fight Carlos Molina. And I think it's because Canelo, or Team Canelo, they believe that Carlos Molina, he had a little bit of a difficult style. Now we see K9 dominate Carlos Molina. So, are we going to see Canelo versus K9 in the future? It's possible. We know that there's a very good chance that Canelo is going to skip past Joshua Clottey, which is a fight that I personally would have liked a lot. But if he does skip past Joshua Clottey, he goes straight to Miguel Cotto in May. And win or lose, K9 Bundrage will be sitting there most likely waiting for Canelo Alvarez. I told you, K9 fights like once a year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to wait around and get a Canelo fight. But I'm telling you guys right now, and I know you guys, like I said, you guys are going to base things on how much you like Canelo Alvarez. But I tell you right now, K9 versus Canelo would be a 50-50 fight. Remember, Canelo and Carlos Molina fans, you guys didn't give K9 any chance of even beating Carlos Molina. So don't be surprised if that fight takes place a year from now, or if it ever takes place and the fight is competitive. But then at the same time, we have to think about the fact that Canelo, he actually could have fought K9 a while ago. When K9 had knocked out Corey Spinks in the rematch, Canelo could have fought K9 for his title, and that just would have been another championship belt for Canelo to collect, if he could have beat him, of course, right? So we really don't know if Canelo will actually even take that challenge. Once again, I don't see K9 as being some future top 5 pound-for-pound champion. I just believe he's a very dangerous gatekeeper for fighters like Canelo Alvarez. And as you just seen tonight, fighters like Carlos Molina. Okay? He ain't nobody that's going to beat a Demetrius Andrade, but he does have a chance of beating someone like a Canelo, because Canelo is a very flawed fighter. Now, Canelo Alvarez could very well knock out K9, but I will tell you this. I would give K9 and Joshua Clottey much better chances of upsetting Canelo than James Kirkland, because James Kirkland, he doesn't have a chin. He's aggressive, but he has really no chin. So, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see what Canelo Alvarez does after the Cotto fight, regardless if he wins or he loses. The world, or a lot of boxing fans, they want Canelo to be the next big thing in boxing. Or maybe I should say, Golden Boy and Canelo fans want him to be the next big thing in boxing. We will definitely see how overrated or underrated Canelo Alvarez really is after he fights against Miguel Cotto. And before I end this video, I want to say this. Do you guys notice how I did this whole video talking about boxing? I didn't make Carlos Molina's police charges the main topic of this video when I brought up Carlos Molina's name. I didn't bring that stuff up because it's not relevant to what we're talking about. You understand what I mean? Let me put it this way. If you had to go to the hospital because you needed some serious work done, surgery, or whatever the case may be, and that doctor or those doctors, they did their job flawless, with no problems, took care of you, I can guarantee you, you ain't gonna care nothing about that doctor's personal life, because the only thing you cared about was him doing his job. right? So the point I'm making is, let's keep everything pertained to the sport that we actually follow. We watch boxing to see who the best is. We don't watch boxing to see who's the nicest at home, who's husband of the year, or some ridiculous shit like that. We watch boxing because we want to know who the best is. That's why we watch it. Talking about Carlos Molina's charges against him or Floyd Mayweather's charges against him is completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. Saying that a fighter is boring just because you personally don't like him, it's irrelevant. Okay, he's boring, but can you beat him? Can you provide someone that can beat him? That's all we need to know. You don't need to like him. You don't need to like how he fights. That's no excuse to avoid a fighter. You can't duck someone and be afraid of someone because you say you don't like how they fight. Once again, you're not supposed to like how they fight. You already don't like the person. There's nothing you're going to like about him. Can you beat him is the only question. Can you find someone that can beat him? Okay? Let's keep it boxing at the end of the day. Who's the best? Who's the Michael Jordan? Who's the LeBron James? That is all that matters. At the end of the day, no matter who you are, no matter what type of fan you are, you want your favorite fighter to be the best. And speaking of Carlos Molina, I also seen comments where some fans were saying that Carlos Molina is top 5, one of my favorite fighters, which completely proves my point that this is not about if you're boring. This is about you winning. This is about who you like and who you don't like. If these fans like you, they're not going to care if you're boring. They're not going to care if you have rape charges or whatever charges it is. All they care about is you winning. And if they like you or if they don't like you. Emotions and pride is what it all comes down to. But we need to start just looking at the sport of boxing and stop creating all of these distractions. It would make the fans in the sport look a lot more intelligent. That's all I got, guys. I'm on to the next one.